I'm Conway Bowman, and this is the Tom Rowland podcast.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. You know, it seems like I've known you for years, but I haven't seen you for years.
I
You know what I
know.
mean?
Yeah, I mean, we got to reconnect here because it has been a while. I mean, we used to be on the Scott Pro staff together,
Yeah.
back in the day of the
Wow.
ST rod,
Year-
and I
Years
mean,
ago.
a long time ago. So, what have you been
Yeah.
doing since then?
Yeah. What haven't I been doing? Well, first of all, since then I don't know if I was married when we first met, but married, two kids, two boys, 15 and 10 now.
Nice.
And just been fishing. And, for many years, I had a day job with the city of San Diego's Lakes and Recreation Department. So it was called a wetlands manager. So I retired from that 2 years ago. So that was great. So, and now, even though I've always fished a ton, now I'm fishing even more. So
Oh, good.
really reestablishing my guide business. So yeah,
That's
it's been great.
fantastic. So, is it? Am I correct in saying that you grew up in Idaho? Is that right?
No, I spent my summers in Idaho. So I
Spent your
grew up in
summers
San
in Idaho.
Diego, and my
Okay.
father was a school teacher. And so our family friends owned the Redfish Lake Lodge. And so every summer we would go up there. And for many years, from the time I was 6 until I was 15, I think, it was a yearly thing. My father and I would go up, and that's where I really learned how to fly fish.
Nice. And that was lakes, rivers. What was going on
It
up there?
was it was mostly rivers and creeks. Redfish Lake, we fished that a lot. But my father and I would kind of tour all around. We'd fish Henry's Fork, Silver Creek, the Salmon River, all those great rivers. And in fact, we were fishing Silver Creek before it was even part of the Conservancy. And he knew the old ranch guy. His name was Purdy, and we had a key to the gate. We'd go in there and fish. This is back in like 1972.
Nice.
And I was throwing spinners in there, Mep spinners, and knocking the heck out of the trout while my dad was fly fishing, because I wasn't a big kid, and it was tough waiting and all that. But yeah, oh, it was great. And then Henry's Fork, that was a big thing we did every year. We'd go over there and hang out for a few days or a week.
Yeah.
And I got to, it was neat because back then, so for instance, Mike Lawson was back then. I mean,
Yeah.
he started many, many years ago. And I remember I was a very small kid in the early 70s. And he walked me down the bank at Henry's Fork and taught me how to throw an ant right on the bank. And I think I caught one of my first really legit rainbow trout there. And it was great. He was walking with me because, once again, I was too small to wade. I was a little teeny kid. And he was gracious enough to just walk with me. So it was really cool.
I'll tell you what. I didn't get to experience the West in the 70s. I didn't get to go to the West until my first year there was 1989, I think. And it was quite a bit different than it is today. But in 72, the Henry's Fork had to be amazing. I mean, there had to be nobody there
Yep.
for the most part. Last Chance Idaho was probably a few houses and Mike Lawson's fly shop, and that's probably about it.
That was it.
Yeah. Do you get out there now?
I haven't been out there in probably 15 years. Yeah. But even then, when I went back, it really changed. It was, it was more of kind of a tourist place. Still great fishing, of course, but much more crowded. I remember standing on the bank, and my dad had waded out in the middle, and he was making these really beautiful downstream casts to rising fish, and nobody was there. I mean, it was totally empty. Now, or at least the last time I was there, it was jam packed. It was crazy. So,
Yeah.
but it was great to experience that.
So what is the fishing change like in San Diego for you?
Growing up here, we fished bonita, tuna, albacore, yellowfin tuna, albacore, barracuda, nearshore species like yellowtail, which is kind of like an amberjack.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had great bass lakes here, freshwater bass lakes, some of the greatest bass lakes in the nation. So those were right in my backyard. The ocean was right in my front yard. So we did it all, my dad and I. And so what has really changed here is, number one, the volume of people fishing. Because once again, when I was fishing, not, there wasn't, there were people that did it, but not as many on the ocean.
Right.
But the interesting thing is this about where I live is, as a kid, and you may relate to this, as a kid, fishing was a cornerstone of what my father and I did, and
Yeah.
many fathers and sons and families. That's what you did on Sunday after you went to church or whatever. Saturdays it was baseball, football. Sunday was church or whatever, and then fishing, right?
Yes.
And so what I have found, the biggest change here is we don't have sort of the next generation of fishermen. There's a gap in there. It's really interesting. And I think because the focus out here has gone away from fishing, and now it's more focused in on travel baseball and soccer and more of these sports, rather than going out and fishing and connecting with nature. So that's just what I see. And managing the San Diego City reservoirs for many years, you really saw that. You saw the generational gap. So when I first started managing the reservoirs, you had grandfathers and fathers taking their sons fishing. Well, the grandfather, once he passed away, the father got too busy doing other things, and so he wasn't taking the kids fishing.
Yeah.
Or the refocus was travel baseball and other things like that. So, but I will say this: my son, he's 15. His group are very into fishing.
Mm-hmm.
They've got e-bikes, they've got their rods, they go fish all the golf course ponds, they go down to the beach. So I see now a new resurgence in this 15-year-old year class of kids that are really getting into it. So that makes me feel really good, because I saw it go like this, I saw it dip, and now it seems like it's coming back. So
certainly in the bass world right now, I mean, some of the young anglers are crushing
yes,
everything.
yeah.
They are winning because, forward-facing sonar is a lot like a video game, and they happen to be incredibly good at it.
Yeah.
And they're deadly effective.
It changes the game. It's insane.
It does. I mean, and young people are, you would like to think, I can probably compete. I can watch a screen as well as somebody else, but you can't. Like those kids, they've been doing that kind of thing their entire life, and they're so good at it.
Yeah.
Plus, it just makes sense to them. Like, of course, like you can see where they are. Why wouldn't you do that?
They've been playing video games their whole life. It's like a video game.
Right. It is. But those kids are making some real money doing it right now.
Oh, I know. It's
the
crazy.
ones that are winning those tournaments.
Yeah.
So tell me about getting into fly fishing for the makos. That's what you're known for.
Yeah.
And is that what you're still like focused on at this point in your career? Like when you go back to like your guide business and everything, is it mostly that?
That's all I do. I'm focused on that solely. That's it. I don't target tuna. I am 100% hunting mako sharks, and it's hunting. And they're an intriguing fish. They're big. They're meat. They're fast. I fish them out of a relatively small skiff. A bay boat, a 24-foot bay boat.
Really?
And we're encountering fish. I mean, massive fish these days. And so that's the other thing that's changed here in the last 8 to 10 years. We have a lot more large makos. When I first started doing this, an average size mako was 80 pounds, 80 to 200 pounds. That's what you'd probably see now. I mean, we're seeing fish 800 to 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
I was out 2 days ago, so it was kind of opening day for me. The middle of May, usually May 15th, that's opening day. And the mako shark is an interesting fish in that it migrates similar to a tarpon, right? They come up, they move up from south, and they kind of pinch in close to our shoreline here. And opening day was this. First fish came into the slick, 300-pound mako. Boom. Second fish was 800 pounds, big giant female. Couldn't get her to go, but she was, looking around. Last fish of the day was around 400 pounds, jumped it, and got it to leader in I think it was 45 minutes. But those are the fish we're seeing now. In addition to that, we still have the kind of, I call them the schoolie sizers, the 40 to 120 pounders.
Yeah.
But the big ones are now really showing up. And it's really interesting to see how that has developed over the last, I've been doing this over 30 years. Those fish really didn't exist when I first started doing it. I mean, they did, but they weren't here. But now they are here. And so, and of course, when you're sitting on a chum slick for hours, hours and hours, and thinking about why we're seeing these fish, my mind's always like spinning around. Why are we seeing these large fish? I think it's because the food item has changed here dramatically over the last 10 years. So it went from albacore to yellowfin, albacore and yellowfin tuna to bluefin tuna. And we have one of the best bluefin tuna fisheries probably anywhere right now. And that's just in the last 10 years. So my theory is it's a larger food item. The big makos follow larger food items. And then when those bluefin tuna settle in off our coast, not too far off our coast, the makos are right there. And that's it. And so if you look, like I keep pretty detailed logs, and it's really funny. The bluefin show up late April. Guess what? The makos are right there with them. And that's when I'm typically seeing my first fish. And then we get into May, and then now you're seeing more volume of fish. And then bam, June, July, August, it's game on. And it's game on probably more often than not. You're gonna see some of these big fish, as well as, the schoolie size. So yeah. And it's a vibrant fishery. It hasn't really had any challenges, and I think it's because about 20 years ago they banned long lining and that kind of stuff off our coast. So I think that's why we're seeing a return of these big fish too.
Yeah. So tell me about when you were first, you've identified that there's some makos out there, and maybe you want to try to catch one. Like, what does that look like? Were you catching them on conventional tackle previous to fly, or how did you start? Like, what does the first one look like?
Well, so this is how it all started. I loved fly fishing. My dad was an early saltwater fly fisherman back in the 60s, and I still have his Saltwater Fly Fisherman of America patch from like 1965 and his card. It's insane. It's in my office. He would take me out, and he would use the old, and I still have all his old Fenwick, Ferrolites, these 10, 12 weights. They're awesome with the big Fluger reels. And I still fish those, by the way, which is really weird. But so I was inspired by him going out and fishing saltwater fish. But we also did other stuff. And then I got a boat, my first boat. I was 16, and I started taking that, fishing in the bay, and then I started venturing offshore in that thing. Much to my dad's dismay. He's like, "Don't go outside the jetty." Of course I did, So I loved sight fishing to stuff, and that started in Idaho, sight fishing to rising fish, right? So I figured out, well, what is a great fish to sight fish to in the ocean? And there really wasn't a whole lot, right? Because we're in deep water out here. Most fish are coming up at the surface feeding, and then they're disappearing, right? So you're casting at boiling fish or whatever. So I read a book by a guy named Nick Curcione, who's a famous saltwater fly fisherman. And he had I think he wrote the book for the Orvis Company. It was called Saltwater Fly Fishing by Nick Curcione. And he said that the Mako shark was one of the greatest adversaries in the ocean on a fly rod. And he was catching those back in the 70s. Huh. And I'm like, well, shoot. And so he lived in Redondo Beach, which is 60 miles north of me. And I'm like, well, shoot, if he's catching them up there, they got to be down here. So growing up in kind of a fishing community with commercial fishermen, I started talking to all these old commercial guys. And they're like, oh, yeah, those things are everywhere. Because these guys were catching them for the table, right, or to sell. Yeah. And I said, well, I want to start fly fishing for them. They're like, what? You want a what? And, and these guys called the fly rod the fairy wand and all this stuff. It was funny. They thought I was literally one step above the village idiot, some dumb kid in an aluminum boat. So I remember this one guy, Richard. His name is Richard Jackson, famous, just an iconic commercial guy, crusty old guy. He's like, yeah, you want to get sharks? Just go on a 270 heading, due west 12 miles, cut the engine, look for the birds, set a slick, and you're going to get covered up in sharks. I'm like, okay, so I did that in a 16-foot aluminum boat with a tiller control motor. I go out there, first day, I get covered up in giant blue sharks, big giant blues. Like, we're talking 8 to 10 footers. And I'm in a little boat all by myself. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of weird. But I was really intrigued. So long story short, it took me 3 years to get my first Mako. And I was on it, and I figured out that the blue sharks are here at a certain time, the Makos are here at a certain time. So Makos are a summertime fish. And that's kind of it. The first Mako I ever saw, it freaked me out. I didn't even cast at it. It was a big one. It was really mean. And they come into the boat, and they're just super aggressive. And I was by myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite ready for this. And then anyway, so I kind of gradually moved into it. I got a bigger boat, and then I said, well, shoot, I love targeting these things, but I also like, maybe I'll start guiding, because back to the guiding thing, when I was a kid in Idaho, my dad, I took a guy fishing from New York City. I was like 10 years old. I think we were on a thing called a creek called Fishhook Creek. And I took this guy up there, and he caught a bunch of bull trout, big ones. And I had them cornered all summer. I knew exactly where they were. And so the guy comes back and tells my dad, that was the most incredible fishing trip I've ever had. And the guy's only 10 years old. And so, and he handed me $20. I'm like, oh man, I guess I can make a living at this. So flash forward to where, later on, I'm like, I do kind of like having people encounter fish and guiding them. So flash forward to, I don't know how many years later, I love putting people on fish, and I love putting people on a big predator that comes to the boat, and they can sight fish too. And they can watch that take, they can set that hook, they can watch that fish jump. And then if we get it to leader, they have accomplished something that not a lot of people have, a fish over 300 pounds on the fly. So that's what drives me. I don't need to catch another Mako shark in my life, but I want to see people encounter this. I want to see them engage with this very large predator that, and I say this all the time, we're not hunting them, they're hunting us. They come to that boat and they want to attack. But the cool thing is they hit a fly about that big.
Really?
They'll hit it is crazy.
Tell me about the flies that you're throwing. How have they evolved over, what were the first things you tried to throw at them, and how has that evolved to what you're throwing now?
Like a lefty's deceiver, right? Of course, that's what I use. An orange lefty's deceiver tied on a hook. And so they've evolved. Now I tie them on they're tube flies, and I tie them on large tubes. So I go to the hardware store and I buy refrigerator tubing. It's bigger in diameter, and they're about anywhere from 6 to 8 inches long. And I tie, so it's schlopplin, it's marabou, and also other materials too, but they're primarily orange, red, or pink. And I'll tie in a kind of a foam head on them. Because what I want that fly to do is I want it just to suspend right below the surface. I want that shark to come up and grab it off the surface. If it sinks down too low, then they can hover over it, and they'll go down and try to grab it. But I want to see them take, because I want to hook them in the corner of their mouth. You want a positive hook set. So that fly, as it suspends right below the surface, in fact, it's right there. It hovers, and you strip it, and it's not an aggressive strip, and they see that, and they go over and they grab it, and it's sort of like a brown trout rising on a hopper. It's not a super aggressive take. It's almost like and then they turn away with it, and then they figure out, what's going on here, and then you set the hook and they go crazy.
Wow. So
that's basically it. And then there's one other fly I tie. It's kind of it looks like a bird. Actually, you know what it looks like is a gigantic floating tarpon toad. A foam head that's very flat, sits on the water like this, and it really floats. And so the way I developed that fly was when makos come into a slick, particularly big ones, they go after whatever bird's sitting there, and they really go after these things called shearwaters, these little brown birds.
Yeah.
And if a brown bird is in the slick, that's an indication. If that thing lifts up off the water, there's a mako there, further out. But I've seen makos chase after those things. I mean, they and for whatever reason, I don't know why, but they grab them. Sometimes they eat them. Sometimes they take them under and let them go, and the shearwater will go and it'll go underwater and come back up and get out of there. So this fly that I tied, I guess it looks like a shearwater, because when you throw that thing out there and you kind of sweep the rod tip and it kind of goes to the water like this, the makos will literally chase that thing down, turn on the afterburners and go grab it. That's the only really aggressive take you get. But it's really cool because you see, you can see potentially a massive fish, taking this thing off the surface. And like I talk about the engagement with the fish, people freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, look at this. And then it's game on. So it's very visual. We're being hunted, but yet Mako sharks hit little flies. They hit things that look like birds. It's just weird, But it's Southern California, so what do you expect?
Yeah. So when you're first starting this, and people are skeptical of what you're doing, you're one step above the village idiot, you got a small boat, you're out there fly fishing for these, what you're hoping for makos. Are you also catching the blue sharks, and other sharks are coming in? Are you fishing for those at all, or are you just laser focused on the mako?
I'm laser focused, but I will tell you this. So we do see the occasional blue shark in the summertime. And people want to catch them. Oh, that's a great shark. I'm like, don't do it, because mako sharks eat those.
Okay.
And it just happened the other day. So we had a smaller mako, or a smaller blue shark come in the slick, kind of roaming around. I told the guy, I go, look, don't do anything. Let that shark settle down and kind of get comfortable around the boat. And if that shark gets really agitated and really nervous, there's a big mako right here. So it's sort of sort of like when you hunt, right? So you have there are indications that something's coming, or wildlife will signal. So anyway, this little shark's cruising around the boat, and all of a sudden it got nervous and started like acting really weird. And this big mako came in and ate it just right in front of the guy. The guy's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then we hooked the mako. And so when we get the fish to the leader, I go, "That's why you don't hook a blue shark." He really wanted to hook it. I'm like, "Don't do it. You can't, because you have to be very focused. Because if you hook a blue shark and you're fighting it, all of a sudden now, your target species comes in and it's a great fish. And now, the shark, the mako could go, this is too weird, and they'll split, or they'll go try to eat the blue shark. And then, so I don't, if a blue shark's there, we just let them hang around. So, yeah, because they're my indicator. They're my indicator that we have a big mako there.
Sure. Yeah. And the same kind of thing happens, tarpon fishing or bone fishing or whatever. You see, oh, there's a jack on the back of that ray, and you're like, don't do it.
I know.
Go over there, and as soon as you hook that jack, here comes what you're looking for, and that's your one shot of the day. That was the best shot you were going to get.
Exactly.
You wasted it on this. So there is discipline there in, don't do that, because of all these reasons, and you're obviously very good at communicating with your customers. So these are the reasons why we don't want to do that.
Right.
What about discipline as it kind of relates to safety? Like a mako is a serious fish. You're in a small boat. I saw already on your Instagram you've had one jump in the boat before.
Yeah.
So like how do you kind of brief your clients on safety?
Well, I mean, obviously it's safety talk before we even leave the dock. And there's no, like, I don't mess around. It's like, these are dangerous game fish, and they will jump in the boat. So we have to do very specific things to keep us safe, right? And I will reiterate that a couple times during the day. And so once a big fish comes in, it's very important that the client understands that they have to hook the fish while the fish is going away from the boat, right? So the fish has to turn, grab the fly, and turn away. Many people get excited, and they hook the fish while the fish is coming towards the boat, and that's a recipe for potential disaster. Because that mako shark, if he feels he is hooked close to the boat, he's going to jump out of the water, and he's going to jump in the boat. So when we have in smaller makos, I mean, obviously they're dangerous, but it's the really big ones that really can cause problems. So I'm very adamant and very stern with people, saying, this is very serious. So I coach them through how to make that presentation, how to set the hook, and the other thing is, they have to understand that I'm going to move that boat away from that fish immediately. So they have to, they can't be, trying to, set the hook here and I'm moving the boat. So it's setting the hook, being stable on their feet, or sitting down, and then I move the boat away. And the other thing, mako sharks will change direction so quickly. They'll run out 100 yards and they're back on you at, 15, 20 yards like that. So you really have to be very careful. But it's something if one of those things gets in the boat, which they have on me, it would be like, putting a 10-foot alligator on the boat, right? And he's going after you. So what, and this is how I would deal with that. So, the ones, and I haven't had a lot of them jump in the boat, but 30 years I've had, a few, and thank God nothing huge. But what happens is this. So one gets in the boat, everybody gets behind the center console away from the shark, right? Shark will work its way down the rail typically, right? And when they settle down, which they usually do, you got to put a 5-gallon bucket over their head, and then you have to have somebody lift the tail, and while I lift the head up and throw them over the side of the boat, and then you hold on to the bucket, and they slide out of the bucket, and they swim away. I mean, they just, it's so if you can get to that point, that's great. Now, the one that stands out in my mind most is one that got on the boat, went down the rail, and landed right at my feet. Because in the stern of my boat, I have a Yeti cooler, and I stand up on a spot off that. Well, the thing landed right at my feet, and it's sitting there looking at me. It's flopping around, and then it flopped over the transom and swam away. And I just swam away, and I'm like watching it. So that's the best case scenario. They just jump out themselves.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's weird. I mean, it's the really weird thing is when you have people that have never even encountered something like a big predator. And I had a guy years ago, I asked him, what's the biggest fish you ever caught? He said, well, 12-inch brook trout in Vermont. I'm like, hey, that's great. And he said, well, how big are these sharks? I said, well, they can get pretty big. And he said, well, how big? I said, well, they can get up to like 300-400 pounds. Like, oh man, boy, I sure hope I don't see that. I don't know if I'm going to be ready for that. I said, yeah. I said, yeah, but we'll probably see some smaller ones. So lo and behold, the first one that shows up is like 400 pounds. And the guy literally, looked at it and goes, I can't do that. And he sat down on the cooler. He's like, he had just seen grim death. He's like, I can't do that. And this was a very aggressive shark. I'm like, oh shoot. Okay. Freaked out, not freaked out, but just really like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I go up and I'm talking to him. He's sitting on the cooler. I'm like, you all right? He's like, yeah. He goes, man, this is a lot crazier than I thought. I said, yeah, it's fine. But I think, we might see a smaller one. And then a smaller one did show up later on in the day, like a 40-pounder. And that compared to a 400-pounder, I mean, it looks like a bluegill or something, right? So he hooks this thing. It jumps and it's a great fight. We get it to the boat, and he looked at me and goes, that was awesome. I said, yeah. I said, so, he goes, well, he said, that's great, blah, whatever. So like an hour later, that same 400-pounder showed up. So it came back. And the reason I know that is when it first came around, it was so aggressive. It hit the bottom of my boat. It had anti-fouling paint across its face, a big blue stripe. And I'm like, so the guy's sitting on the bow. I go, well, here's another one. He looks over. He goes, how big? I go, this is the one that was here earlier. He goes, the 40-pounder? I go, no, the 400-pounder. And he looks at it. He's like, oh my gosh. And it's circling the boat. And he said, you think I could get that one? I go, oh, heck yeah. So we put the rod in the guy's hand, and he makes the cast, and he hooks this thing, and it goes crazy. It jumps. It does all the great things. We get it to the boat. We release it. And he was like, oh my gosh, that was like the most amazing thing I've ever done. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. I never thought I could get a 400-pound fish, blah, blah. So it was cool. And every year he sends me a Christmas card saying, hey, thank you for, getting me into saltwater fly fishing, because now he is a really avid saltwater fly fisherman. So that was cool. I got to inspire him, or the Mako shark got to inspire him to go target tarpon and bill. I mean, the guy has been all over the world, and he's gotten billfish, tarpon, tuna, and he's totally into it just because of that trip. Because prior to fishing with me, he caught a 12-inch brook trout in Vermont. So that's what makes it great for me.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, all of us have some sort of a fishing trip that stands out in your mind of like, well, that's probably what did it for me.
Yep.
Like I remember my dad took me to northern Saskatchewan, and it was when I was a junior in high school, and it was wild. We were on this place called Reindeer Lake, and the guides, they would work, from 9 to 5 or whatever, but it never got dark up there. And then they just said, here, you can just take the boats if you want. So you let this 16-year-old kid just take the boat with another 16-year-old kid that was up there, and we fished all night.
Wow.
I mean, it was light. It never got dark.
Yeah.
You could just catch these pike. I mean, you didn't have to know what you were doing. We were just casting and catching, casting and catching. And that trip for me was like, that's amazing. Like, I mean, just never stop fishing. And it didn't get dark. I'm like, this is literally a fantasy land. It doesn't get dark. You catch a fish on virtually every cast. They just gave you a boat and said, hope you don't get lost on this lake with a million islands in it. I can't even believe I didn't get lost. But it was crazy. But that one trip, like everybody's got that one trip. And for that guy, that's what it was. It was catching that Mako.
So my trip was this. So I when I was 16, I got my first aluminum boat. My dad launched me at the ramp, and he said, "Okay," said, "Don't go outside the harbor. Stay in the bay." So I had a tiller control. I went out, and so I could have made. There were 2 turns I could have made. I had the option to make. If I made a right turn, I would go back into Mission Bay. Safe waters, everything's great, no problem. If I made a left turn, I go out through the two jetties, Mission and OB jetty, and I'm in the open ocean. So I get to that point, the crossroads, and I look right, and I go, yeah, that's the bay. And I look left, I go, that's the open ocean. And I looked right again, I go, that's the bay. And then I went, I'm going to the open ocean. So I took this boat out. And so as I got out towards the opening of the jetties, the surf was it was pretty big, not outrageously big, but for a 16-foot aluminum, it was big. And so I went in, over the swells and got out in the open ocean, and I stopped the boat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and here I am, seagulls and terns picking everywhere, and the smell of the open ocean, and I'm looking back, and I'm a half mile off the beach in the open ocean. That was the moment that inspired me to continue to do that. And I went against what my dad asked me to do, but that's what got me to do that. That inspired me to go out and have more of an adventurous spirit. And that's when I kind of just went, you know what? That's what I want to do. And so that was it. I didn't catch any fish, but it was that inspiring moment. And so that's why, I'm here guiding now too, because I still like that feeling of adventure every day, targeting these big predators and watching people go, oh my God, look at the size of that thing.
Do you remember the conversation you had with your dad when you got back from that particular trip?
Yeah, I never told him. This is absolutely no joke. My father died in 2021. He was my hero, great dude. And I was talking to my sister about that story. She's like, did you ever tell that? I go, nope, never did. So, yeah. I loved and respected my dad so much. I never wanted to disappoint him.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, so.
And an aluminum boat, it has zero rotation in it.
Dude,
it like a rock.
It was not. It was like a beer can out there floating around.
I have a friend that had a boat just like that, and he was in Biscayne Bay, and his instructions were you stay within the bay, right? Like it's an inshore little bay like you had. And he said everything was going great until my dad found mahi in the freezer. So you're not alone in being a young kid that just can't. It's right there.
It was there. Yeah, there. It was there. Oh my God. It's like that girl, your first date, the first girlfriend. She's there. You got to go. You got to ask her to go to the dance, right? Yeah. It was cool.
So when tell me, I want to know about the first one that you hook yourself. Like you said, the first time you went out there, you were covered up in blue sharks. How long was it before you saw the first Mako, before you started to get this thing figured out a little bit, and then you're standing there with a rod in your hand, probably alone, I would imagine.
Yep.
Tell me about what it was like hooking that very first one.
So it was 3 years after I started doing this, because I figured out 3 years. Yeah, because I just didn't, and I really had a lot of help from commercial fishermen. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to give me any info because you know how those guys are. You got to earn their respect. You got to earn your chops, man. So I would come in to I would launch my boat, and I'd come in, I'd talk to the guys on the dock, and they're like, hey, fly guy or whatever they called me. You see any Makos today? No. They're like, well, all right. And then so finally they said, well, you're fishing the wrong time of year. Okay. So then they kind of gradually moved me into their circle. So flash forward 3 years, I'm out at the 9 Mile bank. My buddy Richard, the commercial guy, is like, go out to the 9. We saw some out there the other day. So I go out there, I set the slick, and almost immediately, like a 100-pounder shows up. There it is. And so the first one I ever saw, I didn't hook it. It freaked me out. So this would be the second one. This would be the second one I saw that I actually hooked. So it comes in, it's circling the boat. I'm like, wow. And it was really aggressive. And I just basically made the cast. I didn't tease it. I didn't do anything. And I just fed it. It saw the fly hit the water. I made 2 strips. It just came over and picked it up. Like perfect. I'm like, oh my. So I set the hook. Takes off. And at the time I was using I think it was a Scientific Angler System 2 reel. Boy. I think it was like 10-11. This thing dude, and I probably had 250 yards of backing on this thing. It didn't run me out that far, but it ran me out to where I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get on the the motor, and I chase after this thing. You know, I'm on the tiller, right? I'm trying to follow this thing. And so finally I chase it down, it settles down, and I get it to the boat. And so this is what a dummy I was. I didn't have a release stick. I'm like, well, so now I'm like, oh shoot, you know, how am I going to get this thing off? I've got a longer steel leader. So I had these pliers, and so I'm trying to wrestle this shark. I'm trying to cut the steel leader. It was a nightmare. And, you know, I'm in an aluminum boat, so it's tipping like this. Oh my God. So anyway, so everything worked out fine. My heart was pounding 1,000,000 miles a minute. And so, I got back to the dock, and Richard was there. He was like putting his lobster traps up or something. I said, Rich, oh, you wouldn't believe it, man. I got a Mako today. He's like, oh, really? Where'd you go? I said, I went out at that spot. He's like, I told you they were out there. And then he said, he goes, so what did you learn today? And he would always quiz me. I don't know. He goes, well, you need to learn. Every time you go out, you need to learn something. What did you learn? What did you see? I said, well, it goes, what was the water temp? Okay, it was whatever. Okay, good. He said, the water temp's important. He goes, what was the bird profile? I'm like, he goes, you have to understand that. He goes, what birds did you see? Well, I saw this, that. And he goes, okay. He said, did you see this sort of bird? I go, oh, those little brown ones? He's like, yep. I'm like, yeah. He goes, put that in your log. So he was working me through all the steps, right? And so every time I would come back to the dock after a day of fishing, he would do that. And so as I gradually, you know, gathered the information from him and the other guys, I realized that those fish were there at a certain time of year, and they were closer to shore than I really needed to go. You know, I could fish tight to the beach a lot of times. And that's what these guys are. Commercial guys are very efficient, right? They don't want to burn a bunch of fuel, right? So they're narrowing down where they need to make their most money with not burning a lot of fuel, maximizing their time, right? So that's what they did. And they coached me into learning, I call it the inside game, like where those fish hang out. Because where I live, you can go from, you know, 100 feet to like 3,000 feet, like that.
Wow.
So that's it. So they worked me through that. And so that first fish was really kind of a crazy thing, but it inspired me to continue doing it. And to this day, and Richard was great. He's like, you got to keep logs, dude. Every single day, keep a log. I have a log of almost every Mako I've ever caught, with the conditions, with the bird profile, with the food item profile, the depth, the water temp, clarity, on and on and on and on. So, you know, that's it. And he would also say he said it's about effort too. You have to put in the work. You can't just rely on, you know, you have to rely on your instincts. You know, and this was even before electronics were really advanced.
Right.
But he's like, you know, you need to use your eyes. You need to use your memory, you know, to figure out what's going on. So it really helped a lot. So,
That's
you know,
cool.
I owe a lot to that guy and all those guys. They really took me under their wing.
Well, it's interesting. Like, you know, at first it seems like they're not taking you under their wing, but you know, like it's almost like they're picking on you. But then when you get in, if you can handle that long enough, there's a lot of different forms of mentorship, you know, and that seems like a very effective one where they're like, you pay your dues,
That's right.
we'll feed you a little bit of information. But what he was telling you about the log, I mean, you've kept that up for your entire career.
The whole career. Yep.
So how have your logs changed with technology? Like, how do you keep a log now compared to back then?
I still manually write down everything. My wife's a marine biologist, so years ago she had a program where we entered a lot of that information, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. And it was her idea. She's like, oh, you know, just you got all this great info. Let's just see what happens. And we put it in this program, and it established a lot of really interesting patterns. Mm. So it was cool. And so she inspired me to do that. So. And I'll do that, you know, at the end of the season, I'll usually enter that info, but I still do the handwritten logs. Yeah. It's just something I do. You know, I just, like, even all my calendars everything's handwritten. So I'm one of those guys now. I'm like the grumpy guy in the dock. The old guy.
But a handwritten log for me, like, it almost seems like something's happening when you're writing something down and you're thinking about it, that it makes a permanent memory in your mind. Because like you, I have all these old calendars. And I can look at these old calendars, and it basically just has somebody's name there. Like I fished with Fitzcoker for these 5 days.
Yep.
And I look at that, and all of a sudden I can remember like all kinds of things that happened on those 5 days
Dude,
that I would never
exactly.
have been able to remember that before. But it's because you have there's
That's
some
right.
sort of tangible thing where you're writing it down
That's
and
right.
it goes into your memory.
It's the greatest thing. It is so awesome. And so my logs are tide logs. So it's like a tide calendar log.
That's what I
So
keep
then,
mine on too.
yeah, and it is unbelievable because, when you start lining up moon phases and all this stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, on the slack here, on this, boom, 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 bam, there they are. Just like I said, opening day, May 15th, I go to the same spot every opening day. And you know what? Every opening day, I find at least one Mako shark. So
That's super cool.
isn't that crazy? But it's
I
because
started
of those logs.
the old Florida sportsmen. They probably, I don't know, they probably had a California sportsman, but they would have this colorful tide chart, and it would
Yep.
just show the up and down. And some days I wouldn't have time to really write out a whole bunch of stuff. But one of my mentors, Simon Becker, he was like, "Look, all you really need to know is what you saw, where it was, and what time it was."
Exactly.
And he showed me this little trick. He's like, "Look, it's like it says that low tide was at 12 and high tide was at 4. So if it was 2 o'clock, it's about halfway in there." And he would just write a line there, and he's like, "Bonefish at so and so."
Yep.
And and then you just like fill in the tide chart. And I have all these old books of that. And
It's the
honestly,
greatest.
those are like more usable for me now to flip through those things and go, "Oh, I remember that spot. I remember that. I remember what
Yep.
happened that day," rather
Yep.
than like some long entry, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to read that whole thing,
Yeah.
which is good, but just those quick notes. And today with technology, I mean, I know, like if you take a picture with your iPhone, it gives you, I mean, you can have it set up to where it gives you the location, it gives
Right.
you the time of day, everything. So you got a picture of a Mako, and it's like, oh, that was at 2:30.
Yep.
And you go back to that same day, you look at the tide chart, you're like 2:30. Oh, the tide was doing this.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
pretty easy nowadays, but I don't know. I don't know that it replaces like what we're talking about, like writing down.
It doesn't, because like you said, you're making this connection from your brain to the pencil or pen and writing on this piece of paper. And there's something really organic about that. And that it's really important for what we do, at least for us, right? So I think maybe the next the generation of people, kids now, or young men or young guys, they're more, tech savvy, right? I just, but I do love that. And honestly, I love, like in the wintertime, just flipping through those logs while I'm out in the garage goofing off, or time flies or whatever. I'm like, oh, check this out. But it's something I'll be able to pass down to my kids too,
Yeah.
So.
Are they showing interest?
Yeah,
in
my
writing?
Max is, yeah. In fact, he's going to help me out this summer. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's a great fisherman. He loves it. Yeah.
So what I know when we go shark fishing, it's fairly messy with the slick and the chum that we use. We'll use carcasses for the most part. What do you use for your chum?
So I call it matching the hatch. So Mako sharks, their primary food item is bluefin tuna. So I only use the sort of the dark meat of a bluefin tuna, and I have a buddy who owns a fish processing place. So it has to be fresh. I don't use any commercial stuff. And it's basically a 3-gallon bucket, and I put it in a kind of a larger bucket that has holes in it. And so I used to put it in a milk crate, but since the sharks are getting bigger, they come in and they'll break the milk crate off the boat. So now I've got these larger blue sort of water containers. They're very thick. You've seen them.
Yeah.
Drill a few holes in there, and it's all about a kind of a slow sort of soak all day long. There's not a lot of stuff going in the water other than the scent, but then I supplement that with Manhattan oil. So I'll pour a little bit of Manhattan oil in there occasionally, or I have a little container that bleeds out Manhattan oil very, very slowly throughout the day. And that's all I use. I don't, this whole thing, guys like, aren't you going to, put more chum in the water? I'm like, nope. Yeah. Because, a Mako shark, their sensories are insane. Like they can figure out all kinds of stuff, right? So they can smell that from a great distance. And if you're fishing edges, margins, fathom curves, they're running up those fathom curves, right? They're running along them. So they're going to eventually run across that slick, right? And they'll smell it and they'll come to the boat. But I do find that matching that hatch is really important. The commercial chum does not work because they put all kinds of stuff in there that they're not sort of probably accustomed to eating or dialed in on. So,
I can
and
tell
there
you.
might be another guy. There might be another guy that says, Conway doesn't. Who cares? I use commercial stuff and it works great. I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
just me.
I mean, you found every guide finds the thing that works for them, and it
Yeah.
works for them the best, and you also develop confidence in it. One thing that I've learned, especially about the menhaden oil, is you don't want to get that shit on your deck.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you a story about that if you got a minute,
Yeah.
and I'll make it really quick. A friend of mine, his name's Jack Vincent. He's a great giant Mako fisherman on conventional gear, all catch and release. But this guy gets like 1,000-pound fish consistently. So I wanted to go catch a big one, right? Just to do it. So we went up off Long Beach, and so I hooked into a Mako. He said it was over 1,300 pounds. It was the biggest one he had ever seen on stand-up gear. Stand up. Okay, yeah. I'm on this thing for 4 hours, and I think we chased it for like 7 miles. Some of the menhaden oil that he used spilled on the deck. And so I'm working my way around the gunnel rail. So I think I was on the port side, and I slipped and I hung up on the rail. My feet came off the deck and I almost went overboard. And when I did that, I jammed the reel into full gear, and I almost got yanked over the side by this giant Mako. So what saved me was the deckhand who grabbed. There was a little like a handle on the back of that belt. He pulled me back on the deck. We were in 4,000 feet of water. How's that?
Dude.
So menhaden oil, yes, it's slippery, and dude, it is dangerous as heck. And even if you're fly fishing, you don't want to be slipping on the deck with one of these things.
No.
Oh, it's the worst. But yeah, you got to be really careful.
You don't have to spill a lot of it.
Oh,
Two
no.
drops of that will cover your entire boat after you walk around and mess with it.
It gets on your deck boots.
Oh my God. 2 drops, everybody's going in, right?
It's,
that stuff,
it's the worst.
I try not to use that if I don't have to because it's so slippery.
Oh, it's horrible.
So slippery.
But it sure works.
Imagine. So is that a safety precaution that you use now? Do you always have a knife on you?
Always.
But nobody's tied into the fly rod.
No. They can just, they can let it go. And that was a really weird experience. And it freaked me out. I was just like, and Jackie went, man, that was close. I'm like, yeah, that was close. But this shark was massive.
Those big ones. I've never caught a big Mako like that, but I have caught a big hammerhead like that.
Oh, yeah. That was a huge hammerhead you got. That thing was massive. Yeah.
I mean, it is. All of a sudden, you're tied into that. You've got the stand-up gear on. You're locked into the rod. Same kind of thing. And we're on a 24-foot bay boat, and this thing is pulling so hard that it's like nothing I had ever experienced before. And when I was trying to explain to people after I had done it, they were like, what was it like? And I'm like, well, it would shake its head like a normal fish, right? Like go back and forth. But you had to have the drag set hard enough to actually slow this thing down.
Right.
So when it would shake its head, it had such a throw going back and forth, not like a tarpon that does it just a little bit, maybe 6 inches, 12 inches, maybe 2 feet. This thing had a throw of like 3 to 6 feet, right? So it would go completely slack, almost pull you out of the boat like you're water skiing.
I know. Yeah.
Completely slack, and then that same deal again. And I mean, that was the first and biggest thing I had ever hooked, and it happened to be that. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sure that if I did it again, I wouldn't have the drag set like that. But man,
it's tricky business, man, when you're dealing with those big predators like that. It's like encountering a grizzly bear, right, with a bow. It's like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? It's like,
I know.
Yeah.
But like you, I wanted to do it once, maybe once or twice. I don't need to do it 5 times, just once or twice. I want to experience what that's like because you're around these things all the time. It's like they're eating your tarpon, they're chasing other fish around, you're seeing them. It's like, man, I'd like to know what it would be like to catch one of those. Well, catch one, and then it's like, okay, I've done that.
I've catch one. I'm done.
I need to do that again. But what a crazy experience. What about getting your first client?
Oh gosh. So he was I remember this guy. And it wasn't even shark fishing. We were fishing yellowtail, and he was I'm trying to think. So I was totally green. Now I'm just kind of winging it because I didn't have any guides to mentor me. That's the thing. I didn't have somebody to take me out. I had commercial fishermen, right?
Yeah.
Those guys were the
You
grubbiest,
gotta
like,
catch fish though.
yeah, but they definitely weren't
Oh,
people, you know. And so, but I always was good with people. So I take this guy out, and it is just a crappy day, right? I mean, not catching fish. The guy was, he was okay. He was kind of one of those guys, and I was working hard, nothing happened, and I could tell he was like, "This sucks." And on the way in, we were a few miles out. This big spotty yellowtail kind of popped up, and the yellowtail at that time on the fly was kind of a unicorn. They were very difficult to catch, so I was rigged up for that. And so I put this guy on a boiler yellowtail, and the guy hooks like a 20-pounder. Didn't really. I mean, that was like a unicorn fish. We get it to the boat, and that made the day. So on the way back in, I'm like, wow. And I'm saying this to myself. I'm like, okay, that was my first trip. It worked great. Maybe I am meant to do this. And then so that's how it started. So it was cool. But the pressure, and you just kind of go about it, and you kind of slog your way through the day, and because you've never been there before. You've never dealt with a guy who has expectations, right? You've never dealt with, how people have their own little kind of idiosyncrasies you have to read. You don't have a blueprint for that. Like I said, I never had a mentor, a fly fishing guide mentor to say, okay, this kind of guy does this, or this kind of person can do this, or blah, blah, blah. You need to show them how to cast. You don't do so, but it was cool. It was a great experience, and it kind of set the foundation for, how I run my show today. It's about the customer. It's about being successful. It's about managing expectations, also being honest, and assessing the ability, right? Their casting ability, making that adjustment, right? And then ultimately, getting them to encounter a large game fish, and hopefully getting that fish to the boat.
what about managing expectations? I think that's probably maybe the most important thing that a fishing guide can learn how to do. When does that start for you? Is managing someone's expectations?
It starts immediately. It's like,
I mean, like on the first phone call?
yeah, oh
Or
yeah, absolutely. Because
somebody's getting you through social media, or do you wait for the boat?
no, it's the first phone call. Yeah, because I don't want, because some people will say, well, what's our chances of getting a Mako shark? Well, you have a chance of getting a Mako, and you may not. And I always say this is hunting, and the thing is, hunters understand this. Big game hunters get it. They totally get it, because I had a client last year. He was hunting polar bears for 30 days, in the North Pole, sleeping in a tent with 2 Inuits, and didn't see a polar bear. So he's the perfect client, right? He's like, we're 3 days into 5 days, and we haven't seen a fish yet. And he's like, I get it. I spent this much time with 2 Inuits in a tent in 20 below zero weather. This is nothing. And then, so we stuck it out. The 5th day, he got a 600-pound Mako. The setup was great. The build up was great. Boom, last day. Like the last 2 hours, he got what he was going for. So he understood the game. I didn't have to manage his expectations. But I find now, since I've been doing this so long, people know what I do. They know the game, and it's pretty easy. I don't really have issues. I don't have the guy saying, well, I need to catch 20 fish. I just don't. And I don't get the because I do all catch and release. That was the thing early on. Hey, can I keep a Mako? They're really good to eat. It's like, nope. Well, why not? Well, just because you can't. Because that's fundamentally, I don't do that, because it's an ethical thing for me not to do that. Now you can go with somebody else, and they're more than happy to do, but I'm not going to do that. Well, why not? It's like, on and on and on. So people know now that I strictly catch and release. So I don't have to manage that expectation anymore either. And if I do, I just refer them to somebody else, or the people are really understanding. They're like, oh, that's cool. That's good. Fine.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I feel like what happens when you talk to people is that if they understand why, then they're cool with it.
That's it. And I don't, it's, but the being honest about it is setting that precedent right off the bat makes things a lot easier. And it's just the way it is. And if somebody has too high of an expectation, they'll go somewhere else. And then they probably won't fish with me. But I reiterate, this is hunting, big game hunting. We may see 5 in a day. We may see 1. We may see none. I always suggest let's do 3 days. That's going to give me the ability to do my due diligence and put forth my best effort to make you successful. And if that's running 20 miles out or running 20 miles up the coast or fishing, trying to find the fish, because makos move, they don't sit on certain spots, that's going to give me the time to do that. So
Yeah.
people appreciate that.
Oh, of course they do. I don't know if you're fully aware of what is going on in the state of Florida with sharks, but sharks are there. We've never seen so many.
Yeah, I've
There's
heard.
been
Yeah.
some sort of incredible explosion of sharks, which defies the imagination of a lot of shark advocates who think that there's just no way that you could have this giant explosion of sharks, because everything that they read and hear is that the shark population is going down globally. But
Right.
I can tell you, from Texas all the way around to Key West, all the way up to Maine, that's not the case. And
Right.
there are more sharks than I've ever seen. They're as aggressive as I've ever seen them. And it's the kind of thing where we could leave the dock and go 2 miles, and you're going to encounter very, very aggressive sharks. Or you could leave the dock and go in any direction you want to, 200 miles, and when you stop, you're going to find very aggressive sharks.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that say that it's, they're following the engine noise. There's other people that are saying that they're being conditioned. There's other people that are saying that, all different things. But what I know is that you can run to places that people don't fish very often, and
They're there.
sharks. So what's the shark? What's the shark population like? I know that when we first started this, you were saying that you see these giant sharks, these 800-pounders or 1,000-pounders in the waters that you're fishing, they didn't exist before, or they didn't exist in your world where you were going, and maybe they've moved in or something. Tell us about what's going on in as far as the Mako goes, or any sharks in California.
So we don't, and I've heard about what's going on in Florida. It's crazy. It's nuts. And that tells me there's something even further out of balance than just sharks. I mean, there's something else going on there. So it's not just the shark. It's something else that's totally whacked
it
out.
doesn't have to be necessarily bad. I mean, I had Chris
Right.
Fisher on the podcast from OSearch, and he knows a lot about sharks and
Yeah, he does.
all over the place. And he is a firm advocate that this is abundance in the ocean. That this
You're right.
is
Yeah.
that we are returning to abundance, and part of that is that they've stopped long-lining sharks.
So there you go. Yep.
That you're not going to have an abundance of sharks unless you have an abundance of things for sharks to eat.
Correct.
It just doesn't line
Right.
up like that. You're not just going to have 1 billion sharks and nothing for them to eat.
Right.
So if
Right.
you're going to have 1 billion sharks, you're going to have a high degree of bait fish and food and other fish and game
Right.
fish. But I just would like to know what your opinion is.
No, I think you're right. I think so. They've had pretty strict conservation measures out here over the last 20 years, long lining and commercial fishing, and so that has really helped. And you can correlate these fish I'm seeing now are probably 20-year-old fish, right? So the weird thing though is we had a gap in this fishery. We didn't see any small fish for quite a while, which is really weird. So that tells me something happened there.
Right.
So they were either getting eaten by the big ones, or they were getting commercially harvested somewhere else. Because once you get outside of certain areas, they can, and these are highly pelagic fish, so they might be protected here, but if they're going somewhere else, they're getting whacked. So, I think right now I'm seeing a lot of sharks, a good mixed bag of small, medium, very large makos. We're seeing kind of a resurgence of blue sharks. So it boils down to the conservation measures, number one, and the food item, right? That it all it does correlate. So yeah, and we don't. So it's interesting. I watched the videos of the sharks in Florida and how they're eating tarpon and all that stuff. That's crazy. We don't get that here. Sharks are great here because, and some people might get upset with me saying this, but they eat seals and sea lions, and we have an absolute explosion of those mammals. They're cute, they're pretty, but they impact fishing more than a shark, right? But these big sharks come in and eat those. They're kind of like that's a really great food item for them. And in addition to the larger makos, we're seeing a lot more great whites in our local waters now too, right off the beach. And why? Because the food item is there, because the Marine Protection Mammal Act that was implemented, I think in 1993 or something like that, protected those mammals, and we have an overabundance of them, and the sharks are there eating them. And then the sharks eat them, and they go, "Wow, this is a cool place to hang out. I'll just have my babies here too." And so that's how that works. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So will a mako eat those?
Oh God, yes. Oh my
They
gosh,
love
yeah.
them.
They
I
eat
mean,
them up.
a mako. I'd like for you to tell me about a mako in this. What type of a predator is. I know it's one of the fastest fish in the ocean. It has a pointier nose and a smaller mouth than something like a great white or even a bull shark, which tends to look to me like it's designed to eat those mammals. It looks like a
Yeah.
mako is designed to eat something else, but I'm sure that once you get to be 800 pounds, you eat whatever you want.
Whatever
Uh,
you want.
but tell me
Yeah.
about what your how you would describe a mako as a predator.
So they are, in my opinion, the apex predator. Because, as you said, number one, they're fast. Number two, they're sort of, their body makeup is really hydrodynamic. They're like a missile because they travel 40 to 50 miles. Their burst speed is insane. It's crazy. They can chase down anything. They say, I think a wahoo or a sailfish is the fastest fish. A mako will chase those things down and kill them.
Yeah.
So hydrodynamic, pointy nose. Their eyes are set more forward, like a predator. Like if you look at like an osprey or a hawk or some sort of raptor, they're kind of raptor-like, right?
Yeah.
They have these teeth that they're not serrated when they're small. Now, when they get really large, their teeth become serrated, but they're more like daggers, like knives, right? And they're kind of craggly. So when they come in, they get behind their prey and they attack them. They try to bite their tail off, and then they circle around while that prey is kind of floundering, and then they come in, they do another hit, boom, then they back off and they circle it. So they're like a cat playing with a toy mouse, right? They're really sneaky. Whereas a great white just comes up and just obliterates something. Makos don't do that. A mako will feed on primarily fish until they get to a certain size. Then they start eating pinnipeds, so mammals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they're 300 pounds. That's when they start changing what they're going to eat. And then when they get to that gigantic size, they're eating swordfish, mammals. I've seen them eat porpoise before, baby porpoise. They eat everything. They're a total predator. So whatever's an opportunity, they're going to go for it. They do not hang around dead whales. I've never seen a mako shark ever hang around any sort of dead item. They don't do that. At least what I've seen. Now, you find a big dead whale floating offshore here, you're probably going to see a great white on it.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a mako on that. So I think they're geared towards this predatory instinct. They want something that's alive. They want to kill it. And then they just want to just selectively go through and just kind of pick it apart.
Wow.
And so when they attack, and I've seen, I don't know how many thousands around my boat, they're very methodical. They use their eye and they roll up and they really look and scrutinize their prey. Like, they're cautious. When they attack, they keep their eyes open. And I think that personality has evolved because that's what they do. They're not sort of a blind attacker like a great white.
Yeah.
They really know what they want and they focus in on it and they get behind it. So yeah, the other thing makos don't like is they don't like something getting behind them. So if something gets behind them, they try to position themselves to make sure they're facing that fish or whatever. It's a mammal, and they'll always get themselves in front of it. So when I'm chasing down mako sharks after we hook them, if you're behind that mako, boy, they stay away from you. So you have to really sneak in on them to where you don't startle them. But if you're behind them, they just keep going. So you have to kind of get in front of them and slide in on them so you can get close to the leader. But
Wow.
they're an incredible. So I would say they're like a cheetah. So if you compare them to an animal, a cheetah is probably something that would be the equivalent in that world. They're fast but they have their disposition is really kind of off and on. Like, they can be very aggressive, like spooky, like, oh my gosh, like attack the boat, or they can be very cautious. They can come in, swim around, kind of look at you and assess the situation, then just disappear. So You know, their behavior, I call it, they have a light switch. It's either on or off. It turns off or on.
Yeah,
So yeah,
interesting. So
they're, and
what do you,
I would not want to be in the water with a big one. They are nasty.
you would have no chance. I mean, they're so fast that we're
Yeah,
so slow. Even if we had a motorized sailboard or a motorized like a hydrofoil kind of one of those foil boards, like
oh,
you have no chance.
I
They're
had a, yeah,
fast.
I was spearfishing a number of years ago, and so I spearfish kelp patties. I don't do deep diving, but you know, you fish around floating debris. And so we had some Dorado on the patty, and they just disappeared. And I was looking, and all of a sudden I come kicking up, and there's a mako shark coming right up underneath me. I mean, literally, and it grazed me like this. Whoop. It was about 6 feet long, but he came from underneath and swam straight up. And it was almost like he was just kind of investigating who I was. But good gosh, could you imagine if that was an 800-pounder? Holy smokes! I mean, and I didn't even see him coming. And that's the other thing is when they're in the water, they have this great camouflage where they blend into the surface and the texture of the water, the way the light hits them. I mean, a lot of times you don't see them till the last minute. So they're pretty cool.
So when you're chumming for the makos, are you bringing in great whites too?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yep.
You
Yep.
see those?
I have seen those.
Are you
And
not an often thing, but sometimes?
I think last year I saw, I think we 8 or 9 last year. Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't see any of the really big ones. Like the guy that works with me, he saw one that was like 18 feet long. The ones I saw were like 500-600 pounds. Those are considered juveniles, you know.
Yeah.
So, but we do see the big giant ones, you know, occasionally. They're here, but yeah, that's a whole
That's
different
the
ballgame.
area, you know, the Farallon Islands and all
Yeah.
of that. That's where they've long been known.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that I thought was interesting talking to Chris Fisher is that everybody knew about those sharks out there, but he was like, well, if they're here and here and here, then they should be in the state of Florida. And people are like, no, not any great whites in Florida. But with all of his tagging that he's done now, I mean, you can see them.
They're everywhere.
Through
That's right.
all over the time, all over the place.
Yeah.
And people have, you know, phones in their pocket now. So instead of like, you know, when you and I were first getting started, people say, I think I saw a great white. And people are like, no, it's just a big shark, you know, whatever.
Right.
But you wouldn't have any proof, right? And
Yep.
now people have all these videos and they're great whites coming right into the teasers. And you can clearly see it's a great white. Plus people have drones and everything.
Oh, yeah.
You can clearly see these things. Tell me about, we're going to run out of time here in just a second, but I want to know what like the prime conditions are. Like, do you have windless days when you're fishing? Like, just kind of walk me through, like, if you were to show up at the dock and you're like, oh, this is the perfect day, what would that look like?
So it's going to be no cloud cover. You're going to have about a 10 to 12 knot wind out of the northwest or due west, or even south. Southwest is good. You want a slight chop on the water. You want your water temperature to be anywhere between 64 and 68 degrees. That's prime water temp. And, you know, water clarity, it doesn't really matter, but nice blue, kind of this, I call it dark gray water is really nice. Your bird profile is going to be, you're going to have lots of sheer waters in an area. You don't necessarily need bait because these things are moving, but I do find a correlation between sheer waters and mako sharks. And that's it. And the perfect day is those fish are tight to the beach. So 2 miles off the beach, you know. Wow. And that's basically it. Slick glass days are the worst. Those are horrible days to fish makos because there's not that layer of protection and camouflage that shark can use to his advantage when he comes to the boat. If it's slick glass, they're a lot more persnickety, but you get that texture on the water and they will charge the boat. The other interesting thing is this. A lot of my bigger makos come after 2 p.m. And on the West Coast, our sun sets in the west, right? So you have this sort of this ongoing glare that hits the water. And I think those makos use that glare to their advantage when they're coming in from the west, heading east and trying to attack a food item. So my boat looks like a food item to a big mako. They come in, they probably think it's a swordfish. And so that later afternoon glare helps a lot. And they are really aggressive when they come in. They'll attack the boat. So they're like a jet fighter pilot, right? They're using that sun to kind of
coming down,
attack. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you've said that they're really aggressive a lot of times. Like tell me about like when you see one coming in, is it making a wake? Is the fin up? Is it just like all of a sudden it's on you?
All of the above. When the fin's up, they're more slow moving. But a lot of times they'll glide into the slick very quick. Like they'll just shoot in. It looks like a big missile. Sometimes you think it's like a porpoise. It's like, what the hell was that? And then that's the Mako. And they'll circle the boat, and then they'll kind of assess the boat, and then they'll kind of go hover out in the slick, and then I'll eyeball them, right? And then we'll go ahead and make the cast on them.
So
But
what
yeah,
does the cast look like?
what's that?
Like, what does the cast look like? Like if a shark is circling the boat, how are you instructing your angler to, like, do you cast when the fish is not there, or are you waiting for it? Like it's going to circle back in. Do you want the fly in the water before it gets there, or are you trying to place it in front of it?
I'm trying to. I want the client to find the fish, and they're big. They can find them. Find the nose, throw the fly 10 feet in front of them. Just put it out there. Let it sit one strip, and then they'll come over and grab it. If they miss it, we'll do it again. Now, if you get a shark, and Makos get pretty hip to the game pretty quick. Like if you pull something away, they're like, this isn't quite right. Like, so what I'll do is I'll do the bait and switch. I have a hookless teaser, right? It's a marlin skirt with a bonita belly strip shoved inside of it. Then I'll bait and switch them. So when I do that, they move further away from the boat. They're more cautious. I'll throw that out there. I'll put it right in front of their nose, and then that triggers them. They're like, oh man. Then that'll get that light switch turned on. Yes. To kill, and then after that, it's like just throw the fly out there and find the fish.
With a spinning rod or a conventional rod?
I use a conventional rod, like an 8.5 foot jig stick. Yeah. And sometimes those casts are super long. I got to really throw it out there. But once I roll that teaser, and it's a real art to get that thing right where you need it. Their eyes lock in, they get on it, and then it's like you really reel that thing. You start slow, and then you reel it back really fast, and then, man, then they're going to kill something.
So are you are you trying to rip that out and replace it with a fly, or
we do both. Sometimes you don't have to do that. You just get them on that teaser, and then when you pull it away, they're looking around for the teaser, and you throw the fly out.
Sure.
So, but and on my Instagram, I think I've got some videos of those things like charging the boat. It's pretty cool, but it's neat. It's a great.
What's your Instagram?
Oh, Conway Bowman.
But that's just it, Conway Bowman.
Yeah.
No underscore, nothing like that. Just at Conway.
I think at Conway Bowman. I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Shows you how tech savvy I am.
We'll make sure we put it in the notes. And if somebody wanted to go fishing with you, what would they do?
Just go to you can go to Instagram, or just go to conwaybowman.com, and that's my website. My number's on there. You can email me through that, and then we'll just we'll get you out there, and we'll have folks engage with the greatest saltwater predator on earth, and you're going to catch it on a fly rod.
Dude, I'd love to come out there and do that.
You got to come out, Tom. I'm sure we talked.
I love San Diego. I think San Diego is just a cool place, man.
It's a cool place.
Southern California, from La Jolla all the way up to maybe Long Beach.
Oh, it's great.
I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I did a seal fit thing in Encinitas. And
that's where I live. Oh man,
you live in Encinitas?
I live right there. Yep,
I was one of those crazy people that was marching around with a telephone pole in your neighborhood.
Oh, you're kidding me! Holy smokes!
When Mark Devine, I love the town of Encinitas.
Oh,
I love it.
Isn't it great?
So much of like a western town, like a Driggs, Idaho, or a Victor, or like even like I don't know. I just loved that place, and
he's got a great vibe. Yeah.
Now he's up in Carlsbad, but that place is just super cool. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Key West too, like a
little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just love that place, and I went out there 2 or 3 times to do the seal fit thing, and then but I never got to do the Mako thing.
Well, now you got to come out, do the seal fit thing, and I'm telling you, Tom, you got to come out and do it. You would really appreciate it. Encountering. Oh gosh, anytime. Just let me know, and we'll get ahead of it, and we'll do it.
I need to take my wife on a trip. We've gone out there, and we had a great trip to Southern California before. We just had a grandbaby.
Oh, nice! Congrats.
Just graduated college. She's getting married in 2 weeks, and so after that, we're going to be looking for like something to do.
Let's go
celebrate. So yeah, man, Southern California sounds amazing. So you're saying July and August are good months for your fishing?
So it's May, June, July, August. And I get them all the way through the beginning of November. October can be a really good month too. And you have other shots. You may get a shot at some tuna also then. Because they'll come through the slick then. But
Yeah.
that doesn't happen all the time, but it's definitely can be there.
Well, I want to go laser focused the Conway Bowman way.
Yeah, that's all I want to do. I don't want to mess with tuna. I want stuff that eats tuna. I don't fly fish for bait.
That's funny. That's awesome. I love it. Well, man, great catching up with you.
Yeah,
it was a fantastic conversation. People are going to dig it. And man, I'm going to definitely stay in touch and see if we can plan a trip out there.
It'd be so great to have you on the boat.
I would love it. All right, Conway Bowman. He's a legend. Check him out and go fishing with him if you're into Mako sharks, which you should be. They're going to school you.
Love it.
All right, Conway.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Talking to you.